The 2021-2022 F1 campaign ended with one of the craziest finishes to a season that we have ever seen, and the 2022 season has kicked things off with yet another wild race. However, it appears as though McLaren and driver Daniel Ricciardo are gonna have to dig themselves out of a huge hole thanks to a horrific start to the season. In today's video, we're gonna be talking about McLaren's tough start to the season and everything else F1, so don't go anywhere because you're not gonna want to miss a single second of the action. First up, the terrible start in Bahrain. The F1 season in 2022 is gonna be much different than the season prior, and it's implementing plenty of new rule changes, including an overhaul to some of the driving components, forcing veterans and rookie drivers alike to get used to the new operating systems. This means that every second in pre-race is important. So when McLaren driver Daniel Ricciardo was forced to miss out on precious time due to COVID, he was just that much farther behind the 8 ball to start this season. However, McLaren was not too worried as Ricciardo has been in the sport for quite some time and is a true professional. And if anyone was going to be able to figure out the new operating system for McLaren, it was gonna be him. Well, unfortunately, their faith was misplaced as both Ricciardo and fellow McLaren teammate Lando Norris finished 14th and 15th respectively in their first Grand Prix in Bahrain. What is even worse for the pair is that they actually should have finished much lower. If the 3 cars that ended up retiring prior to the end of the race actually finished, they would have each been knocked down at least 3 full spots. And I don't think that 17th and 18th respectively for the 2 McLaren drivers would have been an ideal start for the British car. Not that their actual finish was really that much better. McLaren is gonna need to find a way to make their car competitive and quick if they want to dig themselves out of this early hole. Lucky for McLaren, the pair of drivers did seem to improve drastically from the first Grand Prix to the second, as Ricciardo and Norris finished 5th and 10th respectively, which is a huge improvement for the team, especially from Ricciardo, who climbed 9 spots from his first race to the second. But is this consistent? Can McLaren rely on Ricciardo for the remainder of the season? Is McLaren suddenly competitive after just one weekend after the disastrous start? Everyone knows the old saying that Rome wasn't built in a day, and I think that is the perfect mantra to describe McLaren in F1 this year. While they had a terrible start, they did have a pretty great bounce-back weekend at Grand Prix 2 in Saudi Arabia. But does that mean they are automatically guaranteed to have a great rest of the season? Are all the kinks worked out just like that? Obviously not. While it was great for McLaren to taste success so early after the terrible start, they are still nowhere near the top when it comes to competing this season. McLaren obviously still has so many things to learn about the new operating systems and rule changes before they can consider themselves in the running for the top spot. Furthermore, Ricciardo is set on taking this learning process nice and slow, as he believes that will give him and his team the best chance of victory. Ricciardo was asked about the learning curve and how long he thinks it's going to take him and his team to get used to the new system, to which he replied, "The Bahrain Grand Prix was tough, and not how he wanted to start the season, but we're putting together our plan to get higher up the grid." Ricciardo continued by saying, "We know we might not get there in one weekend, so we're focused on learning as much as we can at every event." As great as Ricciardo and Norris were in weekend 2, they still have a great deal to learn and a large gap to make up if they plan on being in the conversation come finals. But they have a long way to go and a lot of difficult opponents to overcome. So is McLaren able to be competitive this year, or should they make way for the other great teams on the track? So who are the teams to beat this season? F1 is a crazy competitive sport, and it seems that the power finds a way to shift or transition literally every season. In the blink of an eye, the mighty fall and once meek find their name on the top of the podium. Obviously, Red Bull continues to be the dragon that everyone wishes to slay, but they too have had less than an ideal start to the season, sitting in 3rd place with only 37 points. Obviously, they still have an advantage at Max Verstappen, the reigning champion from last season, is still firmly in charge of this league and has proven that he can bounce back from a deficit when need be, so it is impossible to count them out so early in the season. Additionally, Ferrari is enjoying a massive lead to kick off this season, as drivers Carlos Sainz and Charles Leclerc have managed to rack up 78 points in the first few races. While that is a massive lead, there is still lots of the season left, and it will remain a challenge for them to remain in the top spot for the remainder of the season. While not impossible, they will have to find a way to stay atop Red Bull and, of course, the other remaining juggernaut squad in F1, Mercedes. Obviously, we weren't going to be able to talk about the best teams currently in F1 without talking about Mercedes, right? They, of course, are still led by longtime veteran racer Lewis Hamilton, who is still chasing down an F1 record while proving that he still has lots of fight left in him. Moreover, the way last season ended undoubtedly has left him with an awful taste in his mouth, and I'm sure he's coming into the season with a massive chip on his shoulder. So far this season, he and Mercedes teammate George Russell have amassed 38 points and find themselves well back of the lead, but again, there is still tons of time left this season, and as we saw last season, it isn't over until it's over, and they still have lots of time to make ground up before the end of the season. Of course, there are some other teams that cannot be totally counted out, like Alpine, Alfa Romeo, or Haas, but I think it is really going to come down to Mercedes, Red Bull, and Ferrari this year for who ends up winning it all. How much time do these teams have to catch up to Ferrari? Obviously, I just mentioned that Ferrari is at the top of the F1 world right now, but there is still a great amount of time left in the season. So how much time do the other teams have before the season is too far gone and Ferrari runs away with the win? Well, as of this recording, we have seen 2 races go down, one in Bahrain and the other in Saudi Arabia. But as most F1 fans would know, there is 22 total rounds, which means we have 20 more rounds to go over the course of 8 months, as the season will come to an end in November of 2022. With the final final race taking place in Abu Dhabi. The other races will take place all over the world, including races in Mexico, the United States, Canada, Brazil, Japan, Singapore, Italy, the Netherlands, Belgium, France, Spain, Hungary, Austria, Great Britain, Azerbaijan, and Monaco. So while there is still a great deal of time and 20 more races to go, teams need to start gaining ground quickly if they want to be in the best possible position they can be to take home the win this season. As I mentioned previously, Ferrari has 78 points, and the team is in second place. Mercedes only has 38, with Red Bull close behind with 37, so the gap for first is large, but after that, it really is anybody's race for second and third place. If Mercedes wants to grab first place, they would need to find a way to knock out the Ferrari drivers who have finished no worse than third so far this season, with them finishing first and second in race 1 and first and third in race 2. The same goes for Red Bull, whose best finish so far is second place in race 2 when Max Verstappen found a way to drive a wedge between the Ferrari teammates just prior to the finish line. Again, the season is just beginning and it is truly anybody's race, but I think this year will be between the 3 teams rather than just 2. Can Verstappen repeat this year and grab another season win, or will Hamilton break the record for career season wins, or will Ferrari finally break the curse and slay the dragons that are Red Bull and Mercedes? Tune into F1 this season to see who wins it all. That's all we have for you guys today on the channel. Thank you all so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.